Let's go. Okay, let's go. Welcome back to the project. This is Project Jira. Rishav here with a. This doesn't really matter. Yeah, it does. I guess I'd tell the introduction. Of course, this is the relief shelter for those without family, without a stable home, or they're fleeing some sort of abusive environment. And we are here with not just self-improvement, self-development stuff. We're actually kind of way beyond and past that, and just trying to have a good time with each other and share experiences, and focus on things that are productive, positive, and generally fulfilling. So currently, right now, we've been working on the second marathon, focused heavily on covering all the podcast behind the scenes. Now, there's some administrative stuff and that comes in the way. That is also part of the project, of course, because it is an amalgamation, a fusion of this virtual slice of life anime type stuff, as well as in real life responsibilities and duties. You can't really ignore either one. One fosters your imagination and creativity and is a source of motivation, and another is a source of discipline and commitment, and it keeps you very grounded. So it's a very comprehensive and holistic outlook on life, and I think that's kind of what I want to embody with this project. So in this video here, we're going to be covering a lot of residency, relationships, finance, taxation, and some of those kind of go hand in hand because the relationships and the residency are kind of intertwined. And then we also have the finance and income tax are obviously pretty much the same thing, really. So that's what we're going to cover here. And there's also some networking with firms and organizations and so on and so forth. So a lot of fun stuff. And the previous video, by the way, was super, super fun for me, although I was a little bit congested because of the environment I'm living in. But it was actually really exciting because I was testing out these lights here. This ring light is what I usually use. But at the very backdrop right now, I'm using for the first time a light that I should have been using for a very long time. This is a ring light. A mini ring light is a smaller version of what I have on the right hand side. So I have two ring lights, and for some reason I was being a total fucking dumbass and didn't. I had to be careful about how loudly I cuss out on stream. On the videos, because I recognize that they kind of filter me out and kind of jeopardizes the podcast. Although I tend to be a very non-PC person, and I recognize that unfortunately on the podcast I do have to be a little bit more filtered. Until I become more established or whatever. I don't know. At least until then. But anyways, so we tested the lighting. There's a lot of lighting stuff. I was really surprised to see, for example, this one is another piece of lighting equipment that we tested in the previous episode. So this is lighting, that is lighting. Brilliant lighting. And this is all dollar store equipment, believe it or not. You can change the brightness as well. I didn't even mention this. Amazing, phenomenal. I'm really happy about that. And we covered some other production stuff, like the success of the green screen. It's actually working now because we adjusted the settings of the hue and the saturation, and contrast. The most important was the hue. We moved it away from the green purple duality, and then we moved it towards like a yellow blue, and then suddenly everything just pops out from the backdrop. So there's actually behind me there's a green Bristol board. Before it was failing to work, now it's working. So that was a lot of production stuff. I call that, it's still behind the scenes and real, but this is even more real than that because we're talking literally about taxation and accounting and household related stuff and people. So the first thing I want to do is I want to cover on the right hand side here, since this is the thing that was popped up in the previous podcast and video. This is the first thing that we showed and we didn't actually get to it. I want to cover it immediately. So in terms of production, by the way, there's this little graphic here which I'm going to showcase, and for the record, it's a privacy graphic. So you can see here it kind of disappears, and I can resize it on OBS Studio and accommodate for the fact that sometimes there are things here that I don't want to show. So in terms of confidential and private information, I can definitely make this to my advantage. And so that's just a heads up there, so I can. Okay, that's a production thing as well. If if you guys are running a live stream, it's always very important that, you know, if you have any private information you don't want to disclose, have some sort of workaround method, a solution, like an image layer to cover up that extra information. Okay. And let's play an animation here for all the people who are watching or listening. Thank you to my subscribers or whatever. And thank you to my followers. I just want to say thank you for listening or watching to this. The fact that you're even doing that is amazing. So over here on the bottom right hand side, we have this Excel spreadsheet. And this is basically, you know, for those of you guys who are running businesses, self-employment or business related expenses. I'll just run through very briefly. This is my own personal spreadsheet that I created quite some time ago. I'm going to make the privacy thing disappear. There's nothing here that's too private. But basically, you can see there are the headers, the foreign transactions. There's a column for, okay, I can run through some of this stuff here. I'm not showcasing anything here that's too much. So we have a column here, two columns here in a darker green and a brighter green. And then the columns along the side have the year. So this would be 2022 tax, income tax 2022. Then we have the date of payment, the foreign transaction, so the amount of the foreign transaction, plus the foreign tax. So, you know, HST, if you get charged $200 and then there's foreign tax, so probably about, I don't know, $30 or whatever. And then we convert that. So we have the foreign transaction by gross, and then with the foreign tax, and then afterwards, the actual transaction amount after currency conversion into your specific country, whether that's, you know, I don't know, like something like Malaysia or Mexico or UK or Australia. And then over here, we have the tax. So HST is the specific tax that would be relevant for me, and then net. So we have these 5 columns here just for expenses. And that's a real change from what I originally had done. So my original spreadsheet was lacking a lot of stuff. So for example, I only had 2 columns here. It was for, at least I had 4 columns of quantifiable numbers. You can see here, there's the date, there's the type of business expense, and then we have the year of the income tax. But of course, over here, we only had 2 columns, and that was literally just the net expense and also the total expenses. So there's actually 6 columns here, so I omitted the 5th one. So there is actually a net expense for each transaction, and then there's a total expenses, which is for all the expenses, all the net expenses totaled together for the year, or for the month, I'm supposed to do really. So if you move over to this column here and keep moving, you can see there's a very nice divider on this Excel spreadsheet. I've made it so that the first 3 columns are fixed. But you see on the side here, there's now income, and has the same thing. So, you know, $5,100 here would be rent, $118 here for the income tax services for last year. Okay, so foreign transactions for income, foreign tax for income. None of this is really relevant for me because I've never received any income outside of my current country. However, the next year, most likely I will, because of this project starting to really blow up. Transaction is after this column is actually for after currency conversion. Then we get the specific tax for my country, and then we get the net income, the net quantity of income, and then after that we get the total income. So we total all the net values. After this, I'm not going to showcase any further, and that's because over here we start to cover, as you can see, the file names and so on and so forth, and I'm not going to go through that because that will for sure have some confidential information that is not worth showing. But as you can see, this is my Excel spreadsheet that I am trying to make edits to. Like I said before, there was a real problem, and I only had 2 columns of quantification: the total expenses and the net expenses, and the total revenues or total income and the net income. I didn't accommodate for the tax, you know, the HST. I didn't accommodate for the foreign conversions. I didn't write any of those. I did not enter any values, any monetary values or sums from the receipts or proofs of purchase, because I didn't think I really needed to, and I was so wrong about that. So we're going to hop over to exactly why and how I learned that I was wrong. So this is actually this is a spreadsheet that's in the works. It's something that I'm working on that is not complete. And what I'm going to do is just going to put on the privacy graphic that we just spoke briefly about, and then I'm going to close the spreadsheet. It is saved. And now we're over here onto email. Now, this is why the privacy graphic is really important, obviously, because as you can see, it's email. So what I've basically done is blocked out anything that has to do with email addresses and stuff like that. But what we have here is a template of a draft that I was drafting out for one of the several different accounting firms that I've been in touch with, and the great professionals that I've had the moment to speak with about business-related affairs and how to maximize deductions and so on and so forth, while still falling within the legal lines and making sure that everything is still legitimate, so that the government doesn't come with their agencies trying to look for an audit. Anyways, the point is, let me see if I can sort of read out a little bit of a little snippet here. So you can see there's a link here that I've incorporated from the cloud drive, the storage drive and that basically inside that drive link is that same spreadsheet that I just showcased right now for income tax purposes, with all the business and self-employment related expenses and income and revenues and all that jazz. Below, we have the message, right? So thanks again for your consideration. You can continue focusing on our clientele. Next year, I may seek your services after properly editing my current spreadsheet to meet the professional standards of detail and organization needed to file proper business and self-employed taxes. And that's basically me just apologizing because I received this email from two of my different accountants. Okay, both my accountants came to me. They said, what are your services? What do you need from us this year? And unfortunately, that was two weeks ago, and I completely missed the ball. Because unfortunately, fortunately, the email provider always kind of collapses multiple emails into a single thread conversation. And what I ended up doing was I missed that they had replied, and I was so upset about that initially. Well, when I say initially, it only lasted for about 5 seconds. I don't really dwell on things anymore, thankfully. So basically, I was not able to get back to them promptly, and I just don't want to, especially right now. I look at the date, and it's just, we have 2 weeks left. I don't have any interest in troubling people who are probably dealing with high-profile clients. I'm a business person myself. I'm not particularly interested in trying to bother someone who probably has clients who are raking in 7-8 figures, and then they have to deal with this kind of small matter. However, I will send a reply, apologizing and showing them the documentation that demonstrates how basically the spreadsheet that I had was not adequate. It didn't have the HST, it didn't break down by monthly expenses or income and all that jazz, and just giving a sincere apology that, that's all right. I will make sure that I'll put in my due diligence and responsibility to edit my spreadsheet and configure it into a way so that the next year, the template will actually have all the values that are needed to properly maximize deductions, and for them to actually, most importantly, clearly be able to distinguish each transaction and to which category it belongs, alongside with the exact dates, as well as the specific tax value, the HXT value, which again, there's all missing, and it still sort of is missing from the spreadsheet. It's still a work in progress. So I'm definitely going to have to work on that, and I'm going to send a reply anyways. It's important to communicate back with them. I know I'm late by 2 weeks, but hopefully they'll come to understand. I even left a little line there saying, I'm dealing with the current difficult situation right now inside the household, and so specifically with abusive relations. So as a result of that, I do have to be quiet because this is something that's not good to mention. But basically, that's exactly why I'm going to make sure I communicate with the professionals so they will have a clear understanding. Communication is key, of course. All right, so that's that. And you can tell this is very important stuff, right? So what I'm going to do is just going to close this one as well, because we have the email drafted, and I'm going to hop over. I noticed that this is a YouTube tab, so I may start to play something. I have to make sure it doesn't play. So what I'm going to do is just hop over to another Excel spreadsheet. So this is the Excel spreadsheet that is quite relevant as well to what we're just talking about, because every time I draft an email, I will copy the entire contents of that draft and over on Excel, copy and paste. pasted there so that I have, some notes. This is for example, a note-taking spreadsheet that I basically compile all of my daily notes into, and then I can refresh and rewind. Especially sometimes you have on your phone, you don't have the right apps, or sometimes, it takes a long time to load the app or something, whatever. It's going through a crash, and it's very easy to find all sorts of challenges when you're trying to sync all of these different pieces of information together, whether it's by email or on your platform or on social media or on a notebook that you wrote something down, right? It's nice to have all of that information conglomerated and focused into a single source that is well synchronized across all your devices. So it's just an immediate note. You can take a look, and then you can easily take a look at pretty much everything that is relevant to your daily activities. So there's a lot to do with like Dr. Ali Abdaal from the UK doing his whole Cambridge productivity channel, Dr. Ali Abdaal, and his crazy productivity stuff and his keyboard, 150 words per second stuff. Yeah, I used to watch his videos, and I really enjoyed that, especially his videos on the second brain. So I was totally nerding and geeking on that stuff. And this is one of those things that is related to the book that Ali talks about GTD, getting things done. I forgot the author's name, but phenomenal book, I'm pretty sure. I haven't read it, but the core concepts are basically a well-refined model of, I think, what everyone has always, at some point in their lives, when they became, oversaturated with responsibilities, wanted to do. So we've all asked ourselves these questions by the time we grow up. Listen, I have very little time. I have so much to do. How can I maximally and efficiently get as much as I can done quickly and accurately? And so, capture and write things down, and then actually do it and plan out the schedule and so on and so forth, effectively and efficiently. So that's basically the spreadsheet here. And what we have here is some notes that I wrote down that are very key, and it has to do here with so two things here. I'm going to start whispering because this has more to do with relations inside this abusive household. So I basically wrote down some coping strategies, some mechanisms to deal with very strongly harassing tenants and landlord. Anyways, I'm going to read out here. So let's just kind of read out loud. Actually, it's not. So methods to develop resistance and kind of like fight against, it's not physical, against abuse and harassment. So 4 tactics here. You can have 1,000 tactics. These are all just mental strategies at the end of the day. If you just go ahead and Google, how to manage toxic relationships, you're gonna have all sorts of strategies just pop up from like Psych2Go and stuff like that, and charisma on command. So it's everywhere. But here's some examples. So that I just came on the fly for myself. Understand that comedy and amusement, from absurdism, right? The punchline is how crazy, dumb, and stupid this is, and how pointless this is. And then so you laugh, and it's amusing, right? It takes away any power they have over you. But the slight caveat to that is, anytime there's any sort of humor and comedy, it's going to be very hard for you to focus on the task at hand. So that's something very important, because if you're laughing, you can't actually work. And I'm clearly trying to work inside the unit. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to do stuff. So that's a caveat. This is a strategy that takes you away from the negativity, but it also places your attention span away from the negativity and places over onto the specific event, right? So ultimately you change the negative nature of that event into something that was positive in an absurd way, but it doesn't change the fact that it's diverted your attention away from whatever work that you were intending to do, if you are in fact working. So that's a caveat. It's a drawback. At the end of the day, it's still just a distraction. It doesn't really allow you to focus on job at hand. So that's something that's really important to highlight. I noticed that this video is taking way too long, but I can't end it until I finish the last thing here, and we'll probably have to edit the video as a result. But basically, the last thing here, if I close this, and I'm not going to close this actually, I need this spreadsheet as a note. So if we swap over to the last thing here, this is the cloud drive. Okay. And what I can do is remove the privacy graphic now because I don't need it. But basically this one over here covers this specific tab covers the cloud drive storage that has all the proofs and documentation that is necessary for my accountants. And once again, inside here are the spreadsheets that are, there's one that's in the works, right? I'm trying to edit it on a monthly basis, make sure that it also includes taxes, HST, and so on and so forth. And also break down the categorizations into ways that are analogous or similar enough to those of the income tax spreadsheet, of the income tax standards set by the firms. So they have to be well correlated, and I didn't have that, so that's really important to do. So that's what this drive is about, and you can see that what it has here is the sharing settings. Share with anyone. It doesn't require sign-in. Specific people, more settings, can view a month, date, year, set the password, all that kind of stuff. And what I can do now is I'm just going to close this because you don't actually need this open anymore. This is where I copied the link over and pasted it over onto my email. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about then is now only physical stuff, so I can sort of keep that away and we can remove this away from the screen, the Edge browser. And what I want to showcase, and this is really neat here, that the green screen now can actually show, even with this green screen, I can actually show the mic. There's some food and some garbage. I want to think about some physical stuff, just some trash here. And something really nice here is this is a little class 2 item that I should be grateful and thankful for, and it's basically a Chinese sweet together dessert made with let me just showcase it. Mango inside. Oh, you can barely see it. I can't allow it to spill on the laptop, so I'm not going to try that, but it's basically made with here we go. Okay. So it's mango, coconut, and rice. Anyways, this container needs to be washed and placed back downstairs. And we'll say our prayers. Thank you for the food. Bless the Lord. And we'll leave it at that. Okay. One last thing. I need to get a new napkin and wash my hands because they're all kind of sweaty after that debacle of considering all the coping mechanisms. That actually made me quite nervous. You can tell already. It changes my demeanor the more I have to start talking about abusive relations. Anyway, so that's that. And I think that's a good place to end this video. So we covered a lot of very real stuff. Some of it was kind of heavy, but again, we kind of dodged a bullet here and there. We kind of weaved around it. I usually don't try to do that, but it's just because of the current situation. There's actually people right. So I had to. Anyways, aside from that, though, we covered income tax, we covered residency, housing relations. We also covered finance. We covered, professional organizations and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different things that have kind of been this melting pot that I put together. Unfortunately, that does mean I can see that it's about 35 minutes. So I'm going to split this video in half, and most likely both of these are going to have to be tossed over onto Patreon because of the sensitive nature of the topics. Maybe not the income tax. Okay. So with that being said, I'll see you on the next one. This is Rishabh. Thanks for tuning in to the Respite Shelter. I should sit back, man. That really got me all nervous. And the cradle position, right? When the fetal position is like a threat, the immediate threat reflex, right? You kind of go punch down and you come and protect your organs, kind of thing, right? And sit back, open palms, right? And your high pitched voice, lower it again. Just kind of relax. So that's it, and I'll see you in the next one. This is, of course, Respite Shelter. Everyone's welcome. If you're listening as a podcast over on Spotify or Apple iTunes or Amazon Music, you can also watch as a video if you want something visual to accompany all that kind of stuff. Or if you're actually watching and you prefer to listen to stuff through your earbuds, you can definitely do that as well if you want to multitask on your house chores or maybe you're on the commute. Again, this project is very down to earth and grounded in real topics. It's grounded even in real time execution. The way you would listen and watch this content is usually stuff that's very relatable to very real responsibilities and real experiences. Okay, so thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next one. I kind of felt like report of the week, but I'll see you in the next video, which hopefully by that point we'll have covered everything. I think we have, and we can move on to podcasting. And I think that's great because we're going to be moving into a marathon of podcasting topics using this entirely brand new, or really not brand new, but a revised old setup. And we have a fantastic, even the banner here is different. I recognize, if you take a look right here behind me, it's that is actually not the same graphic that I used previously for the chroma key. It was something that had some Chinese traditional inscriptions, but this one is actually from my live stream. So it's basically the thumbnail. Yeah. And it captures the lights at the back. I'm not sure if you can call it LED, but it's the RGB lighting at that behind the laptop right now that you couldn't be able to see normally because of the way it's facing, it's oriented. So now I actually have it the backdrop and you can actually see, and it's a great contrast to what's in front. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one. Very long video. I'm gonna have to cut this in two. See you there.